X to the Z exhibit.
What's up, guys? It's Andy Frisella.
This is your boy, Foul Monch.
This is Ryan Serhant.
This is Shingy.
Hi, it's Patrick
This is Sonia Sarvatani.
This is Director X.
Hey, everybody, I'm Forbes Riley.
Yo, this is Goldie.
This is Amberly Lago.
This is Chris Voss.
Michael Francis here.
Yo, this is Charlie Tuna.
Hey, what's up? It's Billy G.
And you're listening to the Run GpG
podcast.
Well, I'm going to go hang out and listen to David's next podcast from the Run GpG.
You might hear something you like. Peace.
Our guest today is Tom Ferry. He is the founder and CEO of Tom Ferry International, the real estate industry's leading coaching and training company. Tom's ever-growing influence impacts professionals in a wide variety of ways, from his rigorous accountability coaching to the very popular Tom Ferry Show to highly engaging training events and legendary keynote speeches. During his career, Tom has amassed more than 30,000 hours of coaching experience and works daily to help agents and brokers grow a prosperous business while simultaneously balancing and loving their personal lives. Tom Ferry is also the #1 ranked real estate educator by Swanepoel's Power 200 and the best-selling author of Life by Design, as well as Mindset, Model, and Marketing. We're looking forward to discussing his story and his take on the current state of the real estate industry with the man himself. Tom, it's an honor. Welcome to the Run GpG podcast.
David, first of all, thank you so much. I'm not sure if I want to have my entire bio rewritten or have you just read it professionally before I go on stage everywhere. That was awesome. Thank you, man.
Yeah, I could do. We'll send it to you. It's your bio, though. It's your bio. This is an exciting episode for us, though, because besides all the influencers, the authors, entrepreneurs, celebrities we have as guests, we are still a real estate company. Yes. We're a real estate brokerage. Yes. So it's good to drill down on all things real estate for an episode, real estate coaching, what you're seeing out there in the industry, as a whole, as well as what successful agents and brokers are doing or not doing. Again, this is great because, I've said this before, you're one of the most prolific people in the industry. Hard to think of someone who could be doing more than you. Again, looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. So Tom, to kick things off,
David,
you do come from real estate royalty. You come from real estate royalty. You have a popular family name in the business, a very well-known name in real estate coaching, a family lineage, right? Could we say it's in your DNA?
Sure.
So to set the stage, break the ice, take us back to where it all started. Why, when, and how did you get into real estate coaching?
So first of all, when you were saying that, I was actually thinking about my grandmother, Liz Wesley, who was selling real estate back in like 1950 in Huntington Beach, California. And she's the actual reason that my pops got into the business. So coaching, coaching's been around forever, David. We used to call it mentorship. We called it interns, right? Being, mentored by someone. We had great teachers in our lives. We had great philosophers in our lives. We had books to read, et cetera. But we saw in 1991 a need. And the need back then, I remember distinctly sitting in San Francisco, Nob Hill, at the Fairmont Hotel. And my pop says to basically the audience in his, sort of Don Rickles-esque, Howard Stern, laying into people like, God darn it. Like if I called you every week and just said, do your job, you would actually perform better, right? You need to create some accountability in your life. And literally 300 people come back to me and hand me a card and say, hey, when that program is ready, I'm ready to go. And I'm an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. I was like, okay, there's an opportunity here. And we had a model. A friend of ours, Tony Amaridio, he was a life insurance guy with Prudential way back in the day. And he had like 10,000 people that were paying him like $200 a month, essentially to have a quarterly update on their financial plan. And so I remember sitting with him because, we were on the top floor of the Wells Fargo building in Irvine and he was the bottom floor and had all this space and all these like consultants working with him. And I just went downstairs and said, just show me the model. Like, what are you guys doing? And he's like, well, we set up a plan. We do this. We hold them accountable. We meet with them, once a quarter. And I was like, okay, at least we have a blueprint. We know it works. Let's launch it. A decade later, 75 major iterations, coaching becomes a thing. And, just a few years ago, I asked a friend of mine, Swanepoel, from the, T360 group, hey, I'm willing to pay you a bunch of shekels. Could you unpack the coaching industry today? And not unlike, David, most real estate companies, or let me restate this, whether it's in Canada, the US, Mexico, Europe, you always are going to have 3 or 4 major players and then 1,000 mom and pops. And I don't say mom and pop like a bad thing, right? Like it's just, hey, it's me and it's my wife and I have one coach and we have 73 clients, right? So what's great is the industry, when I reflect back 3.5 or 3 decades ago, where coaching has come today, it's so mainstream today. Right now, you've got 1,000 different flavors, 1,000 different SKUs, 1,000 different approaches, a local person, some that use software, some that don't use software, some that do in person, some that call it coaching and they just do group sessions, right? And then some like us that are like rigorously holding people accountable to the standards and everything in between. So it's that's kind of the backstory. It's a blessing to be in this industry and to be able to serve the people that we do and watch so many other companies, my contemporaries, serve as well.
Yeah, it's interesting too. You brought up a good point. When I was preparing for this episode, I saw an interview with your dad, and he was quick. He said this. He said, "Tom is very enthusiastic and motivational. I'm more logical." And then he said, "No, listen. I don't know if you've seen this interview. I don't know if you've seen it. It's really good.
But I'm gonna see him this weekend, and I will bust his chops."
Quote it back to him because he said it.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Who's better, me or Tom?"
Yeah.
And then he said, "Whoever is in front of the audience that we're speaking to at that time," which I thought was a great quote.
Yeah.
And the point he's making is valid. Real estate coaching and coaching programs, it's an interesting space. There's a sea of advice and a lot of coaches out there, but I think there is something for everyone. But over the years that we've been in the industry, one of the traits we've seen among successful agents, teams, brokers is the ability to execute and take action. I think that's what coaching programs help with. Execution trumps all. You could be in real estate coaching for many years, spend a lot of money and never implement. So do you agree that very few actually implement on the level they need to? Or I guess we should ask, why is execution so important?
So there's a lot to unpack there. First, I don't think that anybody that is successful will say to you, "I execute at the level that I should." Mm-hmm. Right? Dissatisfaction is a symptom of ambitious people. Right? I was just with Tim Grover, who was Michael Jordan's trainer and Kobe Bryant's trainer and Dwayne Wade. And, he and I were having this sort of coach to coach chat sort of offline before we did work together. And we were both saying the same thing. And that's usually just how we roll. So that's one thought. I don't think anybody's ever going to be satisfied with their execution. The second thing is, you said, like execution trumps all. I actually disagree. I actually believe that the right execution, right, done repeatedly while tracking and measuring and rigorously re-examining, is it still working? Is it still relevant? Right? That's where you really get the greatest success. I think what a really good coach does is help somebody set an intention, right? What am I building, right? What are we trying to accomplish? Not this year. Forget this year. This year's already over, right? Like as we're doing this show right now, this year's already over. Everything you did the last 18 months, you're going to experience in the next 12. So the question is, what are you going to put in place today for 23, 24, 25, right? A good coach does that. Let's give you a future to live into so we can say, I'm building this. Now let's reverse engineer back what has to happen in 24, 23, 22 in order to make that a reality. And then what a good coach does is they're like, do you have kids, David?
Yeah, I got 2.
But remember when your kids were young and you take them to like the bowling alley? Mm-hmm. And it was horrible. If it went in the gutter, you were like, oh, and they were like, this is stupid, Dad. Why am I here? Right. But the second they put those funny glow stick, call them guardrails up, then it was like a horrible shot. Bing, 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 bing. And at least a couple of pins went down and they thought they were rock stars. That's what a good coach does. Set a really clear vision, reverse engineer the plan, the who, the how, the what, all the stuff that we understand, the mechanics of this business, marketing funnel, people funnel, everything. But what they do is they keep the guardrails up because most entrepreneurs, myself included, and I guarantee you as well, we take all these ideas and if we don't pay attention, we can go off the rails. Mm-hmm. And a good coach keeps you like bing, 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 keeps the ball going down the lane to go achieve what it is you want to achieve. Make sense?
Said like the number one real estate coach in the industry. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but it's like what I don't want people to think as they're listening to this is I am actually very logical, which is funny coming from my dad because he would always say to me, you think too much, right? So there's just like I'm internally like I can't wait to rouse him. Most people try and complicate success, mm-hmm. right? Like they complicate things. And if you can just say, look, my job is at the end of the day as a real estate sales professional, a loan officer, somebody in the title business, your job is to get appointments and go on appointments and fulfill on that promise. Like that's it. get appointments, go on appointments, fulfill whatever promises that you made. If you can look at your business that simply and then say, well, then how much time am I spending getting appointments, and how many different ways can I get appointments, and what's worked for me in the past? What can I redo? What do I need to add? Right? Like we need to add, because certainly what got us to 2021 is not going to get us to 2022. There's more competition. There's less inventory. There's more stress and tension. We have to add more. And then, hey, going on appointments. How many appointments do I actually go on? Like you have this incredible brokerage, right? We coach tens of thousands of agents. And I tell them all the time, like, there's 365 days in a year. I'm not asking you to go on 365, but if you did, that'd be great. Can you just get on 220 between buyer consultations, right? Research phase sellers and actual ready to go sellers? They do that. The game is over. They win. And then fulfilling the promise. So does that mean a better marketing, a better listing launch, a better execution of your open house? You know what I mean? Like the mechanics are everywhere, but everybody complicates this business. Get, go on, fulfill. That's it.
Yeah, it's super well said. You actually touched on something that we tell the agents and coach the agents is, again, reverse engineer. If you want to make X amount of dollars or close this many transactions, how many appointments do you need to be on? How many calls do you have to make? How many leads need to be in your database? Whatever 100%. That is.
It's a math equation.
It is. And just to reiterate, execution trumps all, said from Tom Ferry himself.
Yes.
Moving on. Success leaves clues.
Yes.
Success leaves clues. The most successful agents and sales professionals, they'll always have coaching and mentorship of some kind. Now, besides applying the actual coaching, what do you see the most successful agents doing right now? Do you see a commonality?
It's so broad because, David, the way I view, we look at this 8 levels of performance is something that my coaches and I architected a long time ago, because if I talk to someone like yourself who owns a company about foundational principles, you're gonna be like, yeah, I kind of got that, right? But if I talk to someone that just got in the business who's a year or less about how to sell their business, they look at me with X's on their eyes. So it really depends on what level of performance. If you look at the trend today, and I don't know the Canadian number, so if you could share this with me, I've been trying to find good data in Canada, and you and I both know, like, it's, as a society, it's a little less transparent. It's a little harder to get data. You with me? Where in the US, I did this exhaustive, very expensive research piece on, let's call it the top 500 MLSs in the US. And then we whittled it down to the 5 biggest. And what I was looking for was my hypothesis was during COVID, I saw this because I'm an investor in a spirits company and a wine company and tequila, bourbon, et cetera. And what we saw was a massive flight to quality and a massive flight to trusted brands. So here we are launching a tequila in April of 2020, thinking to ourselves, are we going to sell anything? Right. And what we saw was people just went to what they already knew. Right. That's what happened. I wanted to know, did the same thing translate to real estate professionals, to the selection specifically of an agent? And we can look back over the last decade and we can see this sort of bifurcation of consumer behavior where they were saying, I'm just walking down the potato chip aisle. That one looks good. And that's how they would select an agent. And the numbers were dwindling on actual past client sphere of influence, listing with people that they already know, like, and trust, because there were so many offers and so much coming at them. And the market's been so good since 2010, 11, depending on how you're tracking, that number was dropping. So I did this research piece and I found 2 things. The first thing was, in the US, across all the major MLSs, nearly 75% of all the volume and transactions are being controlled by the top 25% of the agents, right? And that it, like, literally 51% of all the volume and all the transactions were being handled by the top 10% of the agents. Now, you and I have been in this game for a long time, and I'm business is a game, right? I've never seen it like this. Right? I don't know how long this trend is going to continue. But the second thing that we saw amongst our own client base was, I've always said to my customers, listen to me, if you own a gas station, you don't want to be open 1 day a week. You want to be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as long as there's demand. And then you want to have as many other services that you can provide, yada, 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 common sense in business, right? Well, the same rule applies to, you need to have multiple days being open. You need to have multiple lead pillars, right? So your past clients and sphere, that's one, but you and I both know there's 6 cohorts inside there, right? And then you've got your geographic farming, then you've got your online presence, and you've got maybe some form of direct mail. Like, there's like 49 different ways you can generate clients. What you didn't want to be is myopic. And what we saw was certainly over the last 2 years, the consumer flight to quality and the consumer flight to trust has really amplified their databases. So back to the question of like, are there commonalities? Sure. You ready? I'd probably say the number one thing is they know what's driving them right now. Like when I just on the phone yesterday with one of my clients. So just for context, he and his lovely wife, we met in 2015. They were at a seminar learning how to build a team. They started to build their team. And from basically 2015 at 84 transactions to last year, 2,700 closed, 450 pending sales is how they finished the year. Like that's a pretty spectacular run. The reason why they will hire 200 people in their teamerage this year is because his drive is really strong. When your motive for action is really strong, everybody's got obstacles. We just run through them. When your drive is really strong, when you know what is driving you today versus like David, when I started, it was like, it'd be nice to be smart enough that someone might listen. I mean, just being honest, right? I mean, you know, I'm 20. Who's going to listen to me, right? Versus today, what's the legacy I'm creating for my clients, right? I'm taken care of. Now, what am I like? Are my clients going to be in a position where their net worth is 10 million, 15 million, 20 million, 100 million? So drive is probably the number one factor. The number two factor I would say amongst the most successful people is curiosity. They are deeply curious. Last week, I had 3,000 virtual and in-person in Vegas amongst our middle and top producing clientele. And David, I brought up Natalia, who, you know, you and I are both, you know, friends of and fans of with Proppy. And she did a deep dive on blockchain, NFT, you know, all the different, you know, variations of coins and what the future is going to look like and how it impacts housing. And what I saw was of the 1,750 people in the room, they all went like this. They leaned in. And when they didn't understand, they raised their hand and said, what the heck are you talking about? Or how do I, and what do I need to do? And so I would say those two. A long answer to the question, drive and curiosity, because you're not going to be one of the best without work ethic, understanding how to market, take care of your clients, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I apologize for the broad stroke question there. I mean, it could go any which way, but I mean, you see the best of the best. It's so funny hearing you say this. I've been screaming this for the last, 3 to 5 years, is that you're going to see fewer and fewer teams, agents, and brokerages doing 100%. The lion's share of the transactions. We've been saying that for years. People don't believe you. Like the everyday agent sometimes doesn't believe what you're saying. And we do. Because
the numbers, if you go back to 2014 and 2015 would counter that and say, no, that's BS. The top 20% do about 28 to 29% of the business. Yeah. And then everybody else does 1%. Like that's been forever in the MLSs. Yeah. But you can't look at, and it's the data tells you one thing, but it's simple, but it's again, execution, right? It's fairly simple, but the 3 things that have changed everything in the industry over the last few years are data, technology, and most importantly, culture, or the way that people shop for real estate and how they pick a real estate agent. That's all changed in the last few years. Right. So you need to, and again, that's a big, broader conversation. But that totally makes sense. Branding, you brought up branding, right? A lot of talk about the importance of personal branding for agents and companies, the long play, when I think Tom Ferry, tactical, motivational, a lot of focus on mindset, motivation, among other things. But in your opinion, what's the difference between branding and selling? And you brought it up, 90% of salespeople sell, 10% brand. However, that 10% way outsell the 90%. So what's the difference between actually selling and branding? Selling is hand-to-hand combat, right? But remember, like selling could be networking. It could be you and I at the hockey rink and our kids are playing and you're like, hey man, like what's going on with the housing market? Do you know what I mean? Like it could be just as simple as that, right? Like that's selling also, right? Just like making a cold call is selling in the entire spectrum in between. I have always been obsessed with branding. The challenge is when I would say branding to someone and say 2005, 6, 7, 8, they were still reflecting on, my buddy Don Hobbs and Greg Herder, who said, whoever has the biggest brochure is going to be the most successful agent. Well, of course, they were in the brochure sales business, so it made sense. And they got a lot of people to do that. And there was something about that because what they were doing was saying, let us tell your story in the appropriate median of the day, which in that case was print. Today, branding is your voice, it's your face, it's your words, it's your promises, and it's how many vehicles or, again, medium you can put that into. So what I see today, and I'm sure you see the same, is agents that started with me in 2009, and I say specifically August of 2009, because it was the first time I had Gary Vaynerchuk on stage with me, and he and I were sitting in the green room and we're chatting, and he's like, okay, so what, your show is kind of doing this. And I'm like, yeah, and your show's kind of, and, I started my first YouTube channel in 2007. He started, 8 months before me. He was doing wine. I was doing real estate training, same thing. We took all of our content and we gave it out for free. He would try and sell wine. I didn't try and sell anything. I'm just like, you should know this. By the time 2010 came around, this is how I sold. Hey, Tom, I've watched episode 52, 53, 54, and 107. We'd like to hire you to do that talk for our agents. I was like, can somebody Google what those shows were? Like, I have no idea what they're talking about, right? That's a brand. Brand is trust. That's all it is. And the question that everyone listening right now should be asking themselves is, how big is your addressable market? What are all the different ways you could reach them? Not what you like to do. I don't give a shit about what you like to do. If smoke signals work, I'm doing smoke signals. If billboards work, I'm doing billboards. If it's Twitter, if it's Vine, going old school, if it was Beluga, were you ever on Beluga?
I was not.
It's like predating Facebook, right? Like, take over the world. Like, I was on Friendster. I was on, you name it, right? Like MySpace. I didn't care. The only thing I cared about is, where's the attention? Where are the people? Let's be there. So if you say, what is the addressable market of my area? I'm in Montreal. So what, 2 million people, 3 million people, 5 million people, right? So huge. So 5 million people. How many of them do I know? 200, 300? So my addressable market for new relationships is enormous. Now, what are the best ways I can reach them? Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, realtor.ca, Google My Business page. The thing is, do it all, but do it in order of lowest cost to highest cost. What I would say, offense to defense. Defense is the shopping carts. Defense is the kids' school. You with me? Defense is the billboard. Offense is all the stuff that I can control the data on, control my spend on. You know what I'm talking about. You do all that stuff, selling becomes easy. If people at scale know, like, and trust you, they're going to call you and say, I've been watching your stuff forever. You've been answering questions forever. Hey, David, we want to sell our house. That's what we get all day long. Like, 100, 150 people every single month. Hi, I've watched 9 videos. I did one thing that Tom Ferry talked about. I send this yikes card out. I got 2 listings. I made $30,000. Then I watched another video and I didn't know what he was talking about. I'm curious. Sign me up. What was the sales process in that?
Right. No, you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, it's something we're obsessed with is design, branding. I've been very obsessed with it the last few years. It's huge, what are
some of the questions you try and get people to answer?
How do you feel when you take a look at the logo? What's your impression when you see me or someone from the company? That type of thing.
So I'm with you on that. Like, that's very classical design. I think about the individual agent that's maybe listening right now. And I ask questions like this, like, what about your past is helpful or relevant to a buyer seller today? How could we package that in a way and then promote that in a way, educate people in a way that has them understand that the fact that you were a gardener in this neighborhood for 15 years before you sold your gardening business and then did this, you saw how many homes go for sale, how many sit, if you can take that information and turn it into a story, that's an element of your brand. But then I ask, what are the other unique factors? Like, for a veteran, what are the unique factors about you? What do you do that's different? And before they say, well, nothing, everybody just puts it in the MLS and thinks you're sell right now. I go, well, slow down. Is there something about when you sit with a buyer that you say? Tell me about the things you say. And they're like, oh, well, I say things like, don't rush into buying a house right away. Let's take our time. Let's be patient. I'm like, oh, so you're a contrarian. You're the opposite of what most salespeople say, which is hurry up, buy the first one because they're all going to be gone real fast. Could we turn that into a story? Are you an educator? Do you sit down with people? I think about like a bunch of the men and women, but I think specifically a lot of the women that we work with that I jokingly say, They've raised their husbands, sometimes 2 or 3 husbands. They've raised their kids. They got a couple grandkids. And what they are is they're phenomenal educators. So why don't we get that on film? Why don't we package that? Why don't we make that a part of your story that becomes your brand? And they're like, oh my God, like, yeah, I know your sister-in-law just got a real estate license, but if you watch Phyllis on TikTok, she's 68 years old and she's like, I know more about buying a house in Canada in like 22 minutes of watching her little short form videos, and she's 68. She's Phyllis. She's the like, I think that is as much our brand today as, the logo behind me.
And you're talking about it, which is, agents need to be thinking about, content, what content they're putting out there on social media and the type of content, you referenced, what experience do you have that benefits your clients today? Right. We know that most all social media platforms are moving to video first. Any thoughts on that, on what agents should be doing there?
So they're not moving. They went.
Yeah.
That was like, 2015, 16. I'm bad with the exact time, but I remember getting an email from Facebook and saying, we want you to be one of our test pilots on this app. And I forget the name of the app, but it was basically when I opened it up, it was go live. And I was like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. I've got at that time, maybe 100,000, friends on Facebook. And I'm like, you mean I can go live right now? And I could actually have a conversation with people, holy shit, this is insane. Right. And the first time I went live, I had 10,000 people on there because no one knew what was happening. Their phone was suddenly like, Tom Ferry is live on Facebook. They're like, what? So everybody, probably curiosity just clicked in. Yeah. So now you look at the data and everyone should Google this. Consumers make decisions based upon the video that they watched at the rate of 81%. So I think the question of should I be doing video? If you're asking that question, you've already lost, right? It's not, should I do video? It is, to your point, what do I have in me that I can give? How can I best contribute? What are the questions that are on the minds of buyers and sellers in my marketplace? What are the frustrations that they have? What if I'm a first-time buyer? What are the 16 things I need to know before I go out and start shopping for houses? How do I make decisions on what's non-negotiable and what's not? Is this my forever home? Is this my first home? If I'm a first-time seller, what do I need to know? Why is it that some agents charge this commission and some agents charge that? Could I line up 1,000 agents outside my door and they're all going to basically be pretty close on price? If that's the case, then how do I select an agent? Why did one agent walk in and say they'd get me dramatically more when everyone else said, we're looking at the MLS and the data says it's selling at this, per square footage? There is so much content people can be creating right now. It all comes down to the thing. Ready? Can you structure it? Can you say, one day a month, I'm going to synthesize throughout the month feedback I got in my comments, other questions that people were DMing me or asking me, something I saw David do that was spectacular and it got a bunch of reach. So I'm going to just R&D, rip off and duplicate what David did, right? And you capture it all. Then you sit down once a month and you shoot 30 to 40 short form videos and you're done. The rest is just distribution, putting it on Facebook, LinkedIn, every place else. And I know when some people hear that, they're like, oh my God, do I look good? What if I say the wrong thing? Are you kidding me? Look at me. Who gives a shit? Just be you. Like I tell people all the time, cause I coach 55% of my clients are female. And literally, David, the ones that are doing video, they're just doing video. But some will say, I just don't know if I look right. I'm like, what are you going to scare people when you show up? You are who you are. Somebody loves you. It's okay. You with me? But video is the game. And everyone knows that. So I don't know if I brought anything different or distinct outside of maybe one time a month. You film everything. For me, because I have 6 shows a week. So it's every Tuesday in my calendar for the rest of the year. I film all day Tuesday, which you and I are doing a little Tuesday. And then the whole rest of my day is film. You with me?
Yep. Yeah. It's so good to hear your perspective. Cause I've called you Mr. Content actually.
I appreciate that.
I've called you Mr. Content. We do every 2 weeks, the whole company logs in across the country. And every once in a while, we'll play a Tom Ferry video. One specifically I want to ask you about.
I think I'm going to make a statement for everybody watching right now. It's the 3 eyes right now in the US and it's 2 eyes in Canada. Because I don't know, I don't want to speak that I know the 3rd eye for sure. So you can back me up on this, but it's ready. It's interest rates, inventory, and inflation. If you can't speak intelligently about those 3 subjects, and all you have to do is go, hey, it's David Morrell with the GPB. I totally screwed that up. GPB.
My God. Yeah.
I know. Sorry. But you know with OPP. Yeah, you know me. I thought it was a different rap song. Yeah. I'm literally saying interest rates, inflation, right, and inventory. Which do you think will have the greatest impact on the value of your home in 2022? Would you leave a comment below? I'd spend $1,000 on Facebook and Instagram to have as many people as possible see that. And you watch all the things that people are going to say and the content, David, that someone then could create. I asked this question, 38% said this, 42% said this, and only 16% said this. And let's talk about it. Right? You are touching the pain point of relevancy in your market just like that.
But listen, a lot of agents, they think too much about, is my hair perfect? Do I look right? The more you get on camera, the less
hair, David. Your hair is perfect.
I get that. Hey, listen, I'm fastidious. About my hair.
Word.
I take it seriously. Okay. I do want to ask you about something specifically, which gets us really excited. And that's unique selling propositions. Our company was founded on USPs. Yes. We truly believe that that's one of the most important things you should be focusing on, as the industry changes. You need to pay attention to your unique selling propositions that differentiate you. And we feel that if you can't articulate your value proposition, you're going to be left behind in every industry, not just real estate.
Sure.
I think it's a Darwinian thinning of the herd. If you can't articulate your value proposition.
Yeah. If you can't say why me in a way that's meaningful for them, I agree.
Yeah. And we're passionate about USPs and identifying them. I teach a USP workshop. I teach a USP workshop, and I actually have used your video. It's an older video where you talk about
the formula. Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's genius. And I love it. So can you just, talk about why it's so important to articulate your value proposition, unique selling proposition or propositions, and what makes you different, and how valuable is it to create USPs to generate business?
So I think about it 2 ways. First, there's the formula that you're referencing, which is basically, do you have these problems? I have these unique solutions. Is that something you'd be interested in hearing more about? Now that is as old as dirt, right? I think the first time I heard that was probably early 90s. Jay Abraham, who was a mentor, he's like, if you can talk about problems that are relatable to the person you're in front of, you have their attention. Yep. Then if you can say, here's the unique way that we solve that problem, you're really going to have their attention. And then hey, would you like to hear more? You want to get together and have a coffee? Then the close just becomes natural and automatic. So the first thing I would tell people is, what are the problems that buyers face in your marketplace? And if all you say is a lack of inventory, you are just like every other chicken in the coop. It's got to be more than that, right? Is the problem a lack of inventory, or is the problem countless days and nights looking for property and you finally fall in love and it's gone? Or worse, you've written offers and you've fallen in love with the house to the point that you were willing to write an offer, and then you got broken up with before you even moved in, right? Like, you got to really articulate the pain, but you can't just have one, because a first-time buyer has a different problem than a move-up buyer, than a lateral buyer, than a move-down buyer. So acknowledging who you're with, and not just, David, I'm speaking your language here, not just having one, but having multiple. The solution part, that's the same thing as a unique selling proposition. Right? And something that everybody in this, watching or listening right now could take on. Has anybody taken the time to teach you this? Has anybody taken the time to show you that? Has anybody just carved out an hour of their day to just sit and answer all your questions so you can make a really good decision about buying your house, selling your next house? Like, that little script has made a lot of my clients a fortune, because they actually got into, I'm not just here to show you a house. Hey, thanks so much for calling. What time do you want to get together? Let me show you that house right away. It's going to be going real fast, so hurry up. Like, that's what most agents are doing right now.
Yep.
Slow down, connect with people, Find out what's truly important. Be the educator. Then there is like one of my coaches. So there's a podcast that's going to come out, I think in like 2 weeks, David, and you will love it. She started in real estate in 1998. Her first buyer, I want to say she showed the buyer like 100 houses, and then the buyer bought from somebody else. And she was like, this is stupid. Like, there's got to be a better way. She constructed, listen to this, a 90-minute buyer consultation. She is like literally 1,000 for 1,000 on her 90-minute buyer. And I was just with her, and she's amazing. 145 transaction producer. She coaches for me. She's got a team. She used to be the manager of a brokerage, right? Working with 100 agents at her office. She taught the same exact discipline, 90 minutes. First you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And everybody say, when I follow it, I get 100%. And she said, when I first heard that line, has anybody taken the time? I just added that right in because it's the perfect lead in to an excellent buyer consultation. Thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's so funny you brought this up. I think, agents just aren't answering that question. Like, what's in it for me? Like if it's just like, I'm going to book an appointment, you're doing the same thing as every other agent, or I'm sending you the listings in the MLS, which every other agent can do.
I love that, yeah. David, I'm fixated with the phrase cultural relevancy. And culture is not just understanding, like, do you have an Oculus, which is, probably a good idea today. Do you understand the metaverse? Like, do you understand blockchain and crypto and all that stuff? And like,
we're moving there, actually, the brokerage.
Right. Yeah. So you know what, you don't, but it's also like, are you culturally relevant with your marketing? Mm-hmm. Right. You could be a really good agent who has irrelevant marketing. You could be a really good agent who has irrelevant language patterns, and you're not getting the results you should based on your track record, but you're losing more than you're winning because you're saying the wrong thing. You're not culturally relevant. 2 years ago, we did our first virtual summit, and, thank goodness we, came back and got to do one in 2021 in Dallas. When I was at that event, I was doing a lot of research on, consumer behavior, why people do what they do, how, you said it earlier, right? Like it was data tech and how we buy or how we shop.
Culture, what we call hacking culture, which is a long conversation. Yeah.
Right. So one of the mega trends that we have seen play out is basically process over houses. Mm-hmm. Process over houses. That if you truly want to be a relevant marketeer today, you market your process, right? You market how you do it, right? You educate people on the differences of how you work with a buyer and what it is you do, right down to, I literally am just presenting to 3,000 people last week. And I'm like, if I were you guys, instead of just sending out the, look at me, I sold a bunch last year, right? What if it instead, like I gave them 5 different variations, and one of them, and David, like I still don't have the language perfect. So for the person listening, I'm working on it, but it was in the US and Canada, where you've got super tight inventory and massive demand. The average buyer probably looks at, 100 houses online. They narrow it down to like maybe, 15 if they're lucky, and then they might write an offer. Like in the US, the average in 2020, the average buyer wrote 5 offers before they bought a house, right? Sound kind of the same? The process, if you sell the process, then people say, I understand you. I like you. You taught me something. I want that. Versus just look at this house. So the piece that I told them to put out was, hey, if the average buyer in Canada wrote offers 5 times, that means 4 times they fell in love with a home and didn't get it. And on the 5th one, they got it. Here at the Tom Ferry Banana Real Estate team, our average buyer only wrote 2 offers and got their dream home. And as simple as that sounds, because neither one of those are sexy, right or wrong. But if you're like, wait a minute, what do they do? How do they do it? Here's our network. Here's our process. We do an extensive buyer consultation. The average agent will just show you houses. We're going to sit you down, find out what your non-negotiable, find out what's really important to you, so we can narrow it down and get you a house. And oh, by the way, if you said, and 38% of our buyers last year bought homes before they hit the market, right? 38% came from someone else in our company who had the pocket listing, and we were able to secure them a deal where they didn't have to compete. You tell me, who do you want to work with? Now, none of that feels sexy, but that is a massive degree of separation for the person that's already written an offer and didn't get it.
It's brilliant. I hope everybody listening or watching is paying close attention, because you're hitting on the pain point, right? It's a statistical USP.
Right.
And it's critical.
Right.
It's
Right.
what matters to people right now.
Right.
See, this is what I love about Tom Ferry. If you pay attention to Tom Ferry, he adapts and changes like a speedboat instead of like a big cruise ship.
Right.
Right. It's important. You need to think about this stuff. That's genius.
Gotta
Love
be
it.
agile. Gotta be
Yeah.
Gotta be curious too, man. Gotta be curious. Thank you. You're very kind.
And you mentioned it. Any thoughts on how agents can acquire listings in low inventory market? Any tactical advantages you can think of to attract sellers or find inventory for buyers?
So, we kind of talked about in the very beginning when I said, the large percentage of listings are coming from their database. So I'll give you like 3 or 4, right? And you just cut me off when I'm going too long. Because this is the central topic of conversation amongst not just clients in Montreal or in Calgary, but in, Newfoundland, in London, England, my clients in Munich, Germany, Sydney, Australia. It's everywhere, people. There's a shortage of houses, right? Everywhere. So 3 things to think about. The first one we call a CMA a day campaign. So if you grabbed your phone while you're listening to this right now and you looked at your phone, I've got an iPhone, I go right to my contacts and I scroll down to the very bottom, David, I go to the pound sign, 6,564 people in my phone. So what we know right now is 6% of the people in your phone are going to move this year. 6%. Now, the bummer is you don't know which 6%, right? Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be cool? Like there is some AI out there and I've invested in a couple of these companies, First.io and others that like percolate who's most likely. And that's cool. But I'm old school. I think everybody in your phone deserves the value. So what I tell people is the CMA a day campaign. So you literally, it's three steps. Step 1, send a CMA to somebody, right? Go on your phone, go 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years, whatever your hallucination is. Right now in the US, the median time is movement is 9 years. So I'd probably focus on 2 to 10 years, that gap of all the buyers and sellers that I've worked with. Then I send them a CMA, easy, bing, 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 bing. I email it to them, but the email headline should say, best email you'll get this year. Best email you're going to get this year. And they're gonna be like, what? They're going to open it up and it's like, hey, Tom and Kathy, just wanted to let you know, I took the time to think about you guys today and we're looking at blah, 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 blah. Here's the value of your home. I'm going to call you tomorrow. Because I'm sure you've done something to improve the value. Now, the email's basic. I'll send you the form because it's verbatim. We tested kind of A/B, what works, what doesn't. And the A1 I'll send you, David, and you could share with your audience, at least your brokerage, right? So they have it. But then you do this. The email just hit. Hey, David, Tom Ferry. I don't know why I'm doing this like a 55-year-old woman. Hey, David, this is Tom. I'm not razzing all 55-year-old women, but you all go like this because you think it makes you look thinner, right? So, hey, David, Tom Ferry, I just shot you an email. I'm going to argue that it's going to be the absolute best email you receive in 2022. Will you just take 13 seconds to open it, take a look at it? Because it's about the value of your home and how much money you have made just in the last 12 months. I'm going to call you tomorrow because I need to know, have you guys done anything to improve the value that could increase the actual equity in your home? So I'll call you tomorrow. Boom. That's the second step. What's the third step? Hey, David, it's Tom Ferry. What'd you think about that price? Oh my God, I had no idea. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, man, don't you wish you would have bought 3 when I sold you that house 3 years ago? But here's the thing. You ready? Using that formula, my coaches, here's what we're tracking. It was 17. It's now down to 16.5. Every 16 and a half people you send that to and you follow the steps exactly as I gave you, email, video, phone call, 16 and a half equals a listing appointment. We don't have an inventory problem. We have an execution problem, right? We have an implementation problem. We're not doing enough of the right stuff. So that's 1. Okay. Number 2, you could just do this as simple. Grab your phone and say, I'm going to text 10 people a day, 10 people a day. And the text, like the problem with this one, David, is about day 8, you're going to stop doing it because you're going to be so damn busy. So ready? Yo, David, you know your audience. What's up, dude? What's going on, homie? Hello, David. Good afternoon, David. Know your audience, right? So, yo, David, what's up, man? Hope you're having an awesome start to the year. Dude, I was just in the MLS. You are going to die when I tell you how much your home is worth. If you're just curious, just text me back and say, yeah, send me something. If you want to talk, let me know. But either way, dude, DOOOOODE, dude, you're going to be stoked. Send. Do that 10 times a day. You know what's going to happen? 7 days in, you've texted 70 people. You're going to be like this. Oh my God, this one wants a CMA. This one's brother's moving. This one wants to buy a house in Florida. You're instantly in the game. We don't have an inventory problem. We have a lack of implementation. We have a lack of guardrails and structure to do the things that we know work. So that would be the second one. The third one, I would play the long game. So the first two are just immediate into your database. When you look at the number 2 source of listings right now, it's coming from geographic farming. I am the biggest fan of geographic farmers, especially for people that love to work with referrals. If you like referrals, you're a geographic farmer. No one told you, because geographic farming by definition is they call you when they know, like, and trust you, and it's time to make a move. Who does that sound like? That sounds like your database. But today, geographic farming, 2 direct mail pieces a month, Golden Triangle of Saratoga, 1,500 homes. Then we went to 5,000 homes. Then we went to let's do Los Gatos, Los Altos. And all of a sudden, we're at 110,000 pieces a month, right? 110,000 pieces a month, every month for 9 years. And when you look at his income, we were doing a little breakdown on stage a couple of days ago. And literally it was 10 years to get to $1 million. Then he got to $1 million. And we literally went, let's start farming. 2 million, 4 million, 5 million, 7 million, 12 million. Last year, 24 million in gross commission income. So farming works if you say to yourself, I'm playing the long game. If you're like, I sent out a mailer, screw Tom Ferry, no one called me, screw you. You're the person that went like this. I just planted a seed in the snow. How come I don't have vegetables? No, it's season. You got to plant, you got to love on, you got to nurture, you got to, Chinese water torture, right? Mail, get their email, start emailing them, add QR codes to your direct mail to say, check out this video, watch this market update, know what the home prices are right now in your area. Why are these 5 homes not selling? 3 things you need to know before you. QR code on every direct mail piece, driving them back to watch a video on your website, not on YouTube. Your website has conversion, YouTube does not. That would be my third thing. So 2 immediate, easy that everybody can kill on, 1 long-term deal. So in 25, 26, 27, you call me and go, I was watching that David podcast you guys did. By the way, did he ever get that thing removed and is he okay? And I started farming and it was bananas. Now you have to keep it in.
Damn it, Tom. Listen, this is an absolute clinic. I'm almost I've got goosebumps because you're dropping so many gems. It's just brilliant. I love what you're saying there. Everybody needs to pay close attention. Hopefully they're taking notes. What are the biggest changes you've seen to the real estate industry in the last few years? And what are you expecting in the coming years?
It's hard not to play off the 3 things that you talked about. I've said it, but I've said it differently. What's happening now in the industry is it's truly been bifurcated, right? So you got basically the people that want to sell a house now and then, the hobbyists, and then you have professionals. And you could argue that it's always been like that. But what's happening is because of the rise of the $1 million listing shows, the fix and flip shows, the, YouTube, the Glenda Bakers on TikTok, all these extraordinary opportunities for people to get an understanding of this business. Housing in the US is 17% of the GDP, right? It's nuts. And I was told, so I don't want to misquote this from one of my clients there, that in Canada, it's 48% of the GDP. Housing matters. How about 16 million homes in Canada? 4 million of them are investment properties. That's insane. So people get real estate and people understand, you like crypto, I like crypto, right? The difference is I like housing more, right? Because they're not printing any more of it. You with me? There's only so much of the earth left and I want to own all of it, right? So recognizing people are obsessed with it. We're getting more and more agents that are recognizing the second part of that bifurcation of the professional, which is scaled versus not scaled, right? That's the second part. So the first bifurcation is just, hey, hobbyist, this is super fun. I just love houses and I'm going to die and I'm going to go back and work at Timmy Hortons, right? Second group is this is my profession. I'm all in. And we're seeing way more people come in starting in the industry, but forever real estate was a second or third or fourth or fifth business that you went into. I failed at everything else. Let's try housing, right? Now they're just rushing straight in right into real estate, which is bananas. But then it's scale versus not scale, right? So not scale is nobody can do it better than me. I'm the absolute best. And that group gets bifurcated again. Some use tech, some don't. The ones that use tech can sell 25 or 30 homes a year on their own, right? Using a great CRM, a great transaction management platform, all the available technology that makes us faster, more efficient. But the other group just gets stuck and they die. Then you've got people that have figured out, if I have 5 buyer's agents, I never know which of the 5 are going to sell a house this month. But I know if 5 of them on my team are 50% as good as you, David, they're just 50%. That's a 250% improvement in my output. That's a 250% improvement in my leverage. So now I can have 5 open houses going at once. I can have 5 people making phone calls at once. I can have 5. And even if they're not as good as you, which they will never be in your mind, by the way, only in your mind, they'll never be. Those 5 people will give you geometric growth. And then you realize that 5 is great. 10 is really cool. Between 10 and 20 is the danger zone, because now you're managing full time. And if you're not paying attention, you're going to start losing people that you shouldn't, because they don't feel special anymore. Because when it was 5, it was a family, and it was 15 or 20, it's now a baseball team or a hockey team. And how do you keep all that going and have the back end working right, and your finances and your taxes and everything else? So you very quickly jump to the next level. And this is the evolution of real estate. Teamerages, right? And teams at scale. There's only, like in the US, the last data point was 2020. So we know the number, David, is scaled dramatically. 1,506 teams in the US that had more than 20 agents. Mm-hmm. I know teams today that have 200 agents that will recruit 200 people this year to their business. The world has shifted to a flight of quality and a flight of certainty. And if you don't get anything else from this, people want quality, people want certainty. If I know buying a home from you, I'm going to have more certainty, more conversations, more communication, more thoughtfulness. I'm going to buy a house from you, and then I'm going to buy another house in 7 years, and I'm going to refer you everyone I know. But you look at the data, most agents aren't thinking about NPS scores. They're not thinking enough about reviews. They're not thinking about the long game of how we treat customers. And that would be a whole other level of people. So that's a big part of it. And then the second thing is, ready? Generating leads is easier than it's ever been, ever. And look, people are leads and leads are people. Like, treat people the right way, be nice to every single person, understand modality. Lead comes in and you're like, hey, this is Tom Ferry with Banana Real Estate. You were just on my website. Now what? Okay. All right. Bitch. No, she's sitting in the carpool lane right now, waiting to pick up her daughter or her son, or he is waiting to pick up his kid, right? It's modality. We understand, like, if you don't get on the phone with that person in 2 seconds, their modality shifts back to, it's time to go back to work. I'm now on a different website. I'm thinking about something on Amazon. Like, they're gone, right? But everybody's interested, and leads are not the game. The game is appointments. Whoever has the most appointments wins, period, end of story, done and forever. I don't know if I answered your question at all, but
you absolutely
walked you through
did.
sort of a journey of, like, for me, like the last decade.
Are you a new real estate agent or thinking about getting a real estate license? If so, you're going to want to ask about the Greater Property Group's Agent Scholarship Program. Why pay for the cost of the course yourself when the Greater Property Group will subsidize the cost for you? Make sure you reach out and get all the details on the Greater Property Group's Agent Scholarship Program. What's next for Tom Ferry and Tom Ferry Coaching? Any projects or events we need to know about?
So, because we're back, right? Well, we're back. I'm just so excited to be, like, doing live events. We are launching our blueprint event, which was, I built back in like 2014, trying to get people to understand, like, here's the building blocks of putting together a business and then a team. And that includes, everything you would imagine, from values to recruiting and onboarding to, training and development and marketing and lead generation and tracking and measuring, like running a freaking business. So it's not for everybody. If you're listening to this right now and like, you're like, that sounds like a lot of work, don't come to that class, right? The alternative is we had an event called Sales Edge, led by the extraordinary Bill Pipes, and we had Marketing Edge led by Jason Pantana. So Jason was like, how do you create content at scale? How do you do better email marketing? What are the best direct mail hacks? Like, how do you work your database? So it was like leads. And then Bill on sales was doing conversion. So we married the two together. So now Bill will get up and say, let's talk tactically, or Jason will start and say, let's talk tactically about your database and the 5 things we should do. And when they get on the phone or when they respond to you an email, okay, Bill, take it over. So we got lead and conversion, if you will, all in one class. And then 1,000 Zoom events that we'll still do and 6 new pieces of content that I'm putting out every week. I mean, if you're listening right now and you make the mistake of clicking on any one of my ads ever, I will follow you until you die, which by the way is a really good marketing strategy because Google tells us it's after 11 impressions that people finally go, I'm going to give that a shot. So something you might want to think about as well. And then outside of that, probably just like you, we are just a talent seeking machine. So finding the stars for our business, right? For 24, for 23, for 25 is very much as the CEO of the company. That's what's on my radar. I think a really good CEO should not be thinking much about the short term, the immediate, the right now. Like that was all in your planning and what we did 18 months ago. So I'm fantasizing a lot about, in the US, what could happen with the DOJ? What could happen with DOJ and NAR? And will we see in our lifetime buyers agents getting paid $50 an hour because they couldn't figure out how to articulate their value, while others are making $10,000 an hour, or what we call like a regular commission? I think that's very real. I think that my hallucination is that teams are going to take over the world, right? Not just Canada, not just the US, not Mexico, but all of Europe and everything else. So we have a bunch of initiatives that we've set forth to support them and their expectations and their excellence. So my time is busy. And outside of that, man, I'm going to be married 29 years coming up in October. So I'm already thinking about, should I marry my wife again? I've married her. This will be the 4th time. So I've never been divorced, in case you're wondering, but I have married her 3 times already. She keeps saying yes. So that's a good thing. My 20-year-old is decided he's a tennis player, that he's not going back to college. And he's going to work for Wells Fargo in the private mortgage banking world of mortgages. So I'm excited about that. And my 22-year-old's going to graduate sometime in the next 400 years from college. Just kidding, Michael, if you're listening. But he'll be done in like 8 months. And I'm talking to him about how we should go out and buy 1,000 to 4,000 rental properties in Houston. So we're working on all kinds of crazy shit here.
Like I said, prolific. I just celebrated 25 years last month. 25.
No way! Congratulations, man! Not great. We should do a whole episode on epic failures and the most important routines to have a rockin' relationship.
Yeah, I mean, people are shocked when I say 25 years. They're like, 25 years? How is that possible?
Because you look like you're 40, so you got married at 15 or something.
Yeah, no, I got married young.
How old were you?
I was around 20, 21, something like that.
Yeah, I got 20, so 22. That's when I got married. Same thing.
22, yeah, okay.
I knew
Listen, Tom, we're living parallel lives.
I love it. You got the north, I got the south.
Exactly. Yeah. You got it. You touched on something interesting. Like one of our MOs is teaching, agents how to create an exit plan. You can only do that by replacing yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest reluctance agents have, is it's hard for them to let go of those listing appointments,
Yeah. You can sell the business without replacing yourself. You just don't get as much.
Yeah. And that comes down to, and we have a lot of experience with this. Like we've grown and scaled more teams than anybody. Like it's kind of our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And we've seen a few mistakes now looking back, 20 years in the business or whatever, looking back, and I very high producing teams, we've seen some of the mistakes they've made. Sometimes personal branding is a problem for some of these teams when they want to exit, things like that. But anyways, not to get into the minutia.
I love it all, man. I love the details. I love the details.
Listen, is there an app or a piece of technology you cannot live without?
All of those.
Okay.
The only thing that matters is what's on my home screen.
Got you.
With me. Yeah. And the stuff that really matters is basically in thumbs length.
Yeah.
So, Instagram, text, phone, video, Coinbase. I'm super obsessed right now. I got the new Halo, which was different from Fitbit because I wanted to kind of, give Amazon everything about my life. So now, like every time I open up my laptop, it's like, you need this, you need this, you need this. It's kind of hysterical. A great one is Heal Your Body. That's a killer app. PZIZZ, which I'm a napper, right? And my brain's super active. So I need something that can slow me down. My buddy Sam Harris's app, Waking Up, is killer. Sleep Cycle. I'm 7 years into tracking my sleep. I'm now at about 7.2 hours per night. When I started, I was at 4. So yeah, I mean, it's all that, calm, like it's all that stuff. I'm obsessed with tracking and measuring everything.
Well, you got to know your numbers, Tom.
Right.
Said like the number one real estate coach on the planet. Here's one that'll make you think. We're wrapping up here. This will really make you think. If you could have dinner with any 3 people in history, past or present, who would they be and why?
Bush, Obama, and Elon.
What a dinner table that would be.
Right. Like one is obsessed about taking us to Mars. I think, Obama was one of the greatest presenters ever. Right. And, G-Dub, my wife met him. We were at a charity function. A friend of mine.
G-Dub? I've never heard.
Well,
George
I live in Dallas
G-Dub.
now. Like he's down the street, right? I see him at the football games. And his wife went to my son's, or I guess my son went to his wife's college. But I think it'd just be fascinating. Like another one of my buddies is the former CEO of American Airlines and lives in my building and is just a mensch of a human being. And he told me the story of what it was like on 9/11 to be the CEO of American Airlines. Right. And what I would love is to have Don's story and then G-Dub's story and just talk about that experience, because there were so many, like, those are the moments, and it's such tragedy when you think about that, right? But those are the moments that make or break who you are, right? Do you step in to the crisis and lead, or do you panic and freak out? And, hearing Don's story was extraordinary. And then to hear GW's story would be incredible. I'd love to know how Obama dealt with the global economic meltdown and why he made the decisions that he made. And, how did he package and position himself? Because his brand, like, he just killed, right? And then Elon, just because, holy shit, he's Elon Musk. Like, I don't think any of us will understand him, right? But like, well, I'm going to get the chip planted into my head, the Neuralink. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep. Yeah, I know.
I want that, man. Like, I want to be able to go like, hey, Tank, I need to know how to fly a B-12 helicopter and like ready to fly the helicopter. Yeah. So I'm in. Like, so anytime with him, I think it would just be fascinating.
I think they're live now with that, actually. I think they're live.
Yeah. Well, they're in test. They're still in test mode.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm paying attention because I'm not kidding. I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's like Neo in the Matrix, right? I know Kung Fu.
Right. Right.
It's the same thing. Which is interesting. Actually, Patrick Bet-David, who was on the show a couple episodes ago, he was mentioning, like I asked him which interviews, because he interviews some, the best of the best. And I was asking who stood out, and he said George Bush, actually. He said he's a fantastic guy, really giving, really enthusiastic.
Very charismatic.
Yeah, very. Yeah.
Southern charmer for sure. I'd put Bill Clinton on there too. Just to, wouldn't you want to like talk to every, prime minister, every president?
Well, guys like you and I,
that experience.
Well, you and I are fortunate because we get to do that, with an episode. Like, I'm picking the brain of a giant right now, and we do that week to week. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay. When all's said and done, what do you want to be known for? What's the Tom Ferry legacy?
I know the answer that's in my heart. It's something that I've shared before, but I was pausing because I was actually thinking about the dash. Right. So if you know the poem, The Dash, like the day you were born, the dash in the middle, and then the day you die, and like the dash is the story of your life. And look, at the end of the day, the last like 2 decades of my life have been basically like, I want to be the person that my boys grew up and watched me and said, that's who my dad is. And anyone that has teenage boys ever knows that it's probably the hardest when they're 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And I don't know what it was, but in like the last year and a half, I'm back to being a genius again. You know what I mean? Like, because prior to that, man, like I was in the dark ages with my kids. I'd be like, what do you guys think about this? And they would be like, you're wrong. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's just to instill in them and as many people that will care the way I care, to do the right things. It's the same thing. Mike Vance, who was my mentor, who was Walt Disney's right-hand guy, who was Steve Jobs, sort of chief, sort of creative architect. And he worked with Jack Welch, and Mother Teresa was his friend. And I'd be like his Thursday, 5th call of the day. A lot of it is, I just don't want to let him down. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like he said to me, like, imagine the first time we met, I asked him this question. I'm like, so you worked with Walt Disney for the last 8 years of his life. He launched Orlando. He was the first dean of the Disney University. Many of the things that you experience, that are the older stuff from Disney, like he was a part of all of that, right? Mm-hmm. Then he gets the chance to mentor Steve Jobs and knew him up until the day that he passed. And then Mike passed a few years later. Jack Welch was his personal client, right? Mentoring Jack when he was like VP of the Choo Choo division, not the legendary, CEO of GE that we all know and revere, and God bless him, he's passed. And then Mother Teresa, he talked like once a month. Can you imagine going from Jack Welch to Mother, kill everyone and be number one or you're fired? And the next one is like, the Catholic Church wants me to come, but I just want to do what I'm doing. I'm living my life. I'm in Calcutta helping people with the passing, like the insane. And then I'd talk to him. And the first time I met, he said, "Hey, don't screw with my track record." I was like, shit. Oh man, I gotta do something. I better do something special.
Man, what an exercise though. But Tom, a great discussion today. Really enjoyed getting to know you a bit better. Fantastic takeaways as they relate to the current state of the real estate industry, what the everyday agent needs to be doing and thinking about to grow and scale their business in a changing industry. I really, really do appreciate your time. Where can the people find you, or where do you want our listeners and subscribers to go?
Yeah. TomFerry.com, Tom Ferry on YouTube, Insta. I probably spend the most time on Instagram and YouTube. Right? That's probably where I get the most DMs, the most, like, if you go to my Instagram page, like every 3 or 4 days, I'll just say, who's got a question? How can I help? And I'll field, I think I've fielded like 9,000 questions since I started doing that, like some obnoxious number. And it's hysterical because I'll literally get, and David, because you get the same thing. Hey, I'm at 30 deals. How do I go to 300? Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm a brand new agent. How do I get my first listing? Hey, I want to take my son and have him get out of the basement smoking weed and join my team as an assistant. What's the best transition? Like, I don't get easy questions. And I will articulate the tactics and the strategy and the mindset required, like on all that stuff. Yeah. Right. But thousands and thousands and thousands of times. So like, that's the place where I feel that I can just scale the sort of unscalable and use any downtime I have just to help people. So I'd probably say Instagram.
Yeah.
David,
all right, brother.
You. All right, man.
Thank
I got to bounce.
Thank you very much. Take the rest of the day off, guys. Take the rest of the day off. Tom says it's okay to take the rest of the day off.
We're going right in the studio, brother. All right, man. We'll see you soon.
Tom.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.